This is Mr. Beck Does Your Homework. This is physics homework number 6, questions number 8 and 9. It says, a ball thrown vertically upward is caught by the thrower after 2.23 seconds. So what happens here is the ball, it goes up in the air to a highest point, and then it comes all the way back down and is caught. It's 2.23 seconds, so I know that my time here is 2.23 seconds. Find the initial velocity of the ball. So I'm looking for my initial velocity. The acceleration of gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. So we will write that my acceleration is gravity is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. So I have time, initial velocity, acceleration, and I'm looking for the initial velocity. Well, that's only 3 variables. I need a fourth in order to apply my equations of motion. So I've got to figure out something I know about this flight that will tell me how to solve it. So one thing I know with the trick here is that it goes up and it comes back down to the same location here. So I know that when it reaches the bottom, it's going to have a displacement of 0 meters. Because it goes up and comes back down. So now, with time, initial velocity, acceleration, and displacement, now I can solve because I have an equation that says that my displacement is my initial velocity times time plus 1/2 of my acceleration times time squared. So my displacement is 0. Is my initial velocity, which I'm looking for, times time of 2.23 seconds, plus 1/2 of my acceleration, which is negative 9.8, times my time squared, which is 2.23 squared. So this is going to be negative. If I do this math and pull this over to the other side, or I can rearrange this and say my initial velocity times 2.23 equals, let me just 1/2 of negative 9.8 times 2.23 squared. Now you can see if you divide by 2.23, one of these is going to go away. So I'm going to do that. So now 2.23 squared and 2.23, this goes away, 2.23 goes away. So now I've got my initial velocity equals 1/2 of negative 9.8 times 2.23, and that will give me my initial velocity. And it's positive because it's heading up. So that will be the answer for question number 8. Now question number 9 says, find the maximum height it reaches. Well, the maximum height is not going to happen at 2.23 seconds. I know because that's gone up and it's come back down. So another one of my tricks here is that the time to get to the top is going to be half of the total time. So if the total time is 2.23 seconds, I need half of that to get my time that it takes to go to the top. So my time to the top is going to be half of 2.23, or 1.115 seconds. So that's the time I'm interested in. So there's my time. Here is my acceleration is still 9.8. My displacement is not 0 anymore. So I want to find my displacement. I know that my acceleration is g is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. Do I know anything else? Time, displacement, acceleration? I want to find the maximum height. Well, I do know my initial velocity from over here. So I could use that, and I could use a formula that does not have final velocity, which would be this equation again. So I could plug in my initial velocity, my new time, my acceleration, and get the height. Or I could use an equation that does not, that recognizes that my velocity at the top is going to be 0. So my velocity at the top is going to be 0. So do I have an equation with my position, my acceleration, my time, and my velocity? I do, and that's the one without the initial velocity. Well, that messes it up a little bit because really I don't have an equation without initial velocity. So I think that this is probably the better way to go. So I'm going to use my position is my initial velocity times time plus 1/2 my acceleration of gravity times time squared. So my position is going to be my initial velocity that comes from over here times my time, which was half of the total time, so that's 1.15 seconds for me, plus 1/2 of negative 9.8, keep that negative, times 1.115 squared. When I do this, I plug in my initial velocity from over here. This becomes math. This is going to be positive. This is a minus, so it's going to be negative there, and that'll give me a positive number here when I work it all out. So I get my final height equals this.